This is Michael Popok, and by the looks of things, it's time for Legal AF After Dark. And by the looks of things in Arizona, we're back in 1864, because the Arizona Supreme Court, on the heels of Florida and its Supreme Court, finding that a woman's right to choose is limited after the 6th week of pregnancy and enforcing an abortion ban there that goes into effect on May 1, the Arizona Supreme Court has done one worse in the slippery slope that we now are in the post-Roe versus Wade world. That Arizona Supreme Court, has ruled that there's a total ban on abortion because in 1864, before Arizona even became a state and before women had the right to vote, old-timey people back then banned abortion. So we're back to that. Or are we? And why is the Arizona Attorney General, Chris Mays, threatening in a profile in Courage not to enforce that law? And what happens if she doesn't? We break it all down for you on Legal AF. Take a listen. But let's talk about frustrating, maddening, and just morally and just disheartening is what's going on in Arizona. I thought we were going to be talking about Florida, in which Florida sprung back to life a 6-week ban in Florida against a woman's right to choose. I thought that was bad, and that's going to be on the books starting May 1st, based on their Florida Supreme Court ruling, subject to a ballot initiative to amend the Florida Constitution in November. So abortion on the ballot again in a battleground state of Florida. I thought that we were going to talk about that. And then Arizona came in with Arizona Supreme Court against the advocacy of the Attorney General of the state, Chris Mays, ruled that a pre-statehood law on the books in the territory of Arizona in 1864, which bans outright a woman's ability to obtain an abortion at any period of time, even pre-viability, unless the life of the mother is in stake, which, as you pointed out at a prior Legal AF is basically no exception. And we've now gone back to Civil War, pre-Civil War, as Chris Mays, the Attorney General, takes a courageous moral position and legal position and says she's not going to prosecute under it. Even though the Arizona Supreme Court has said that a warning to doctors, if you violate this ban from 1864, you could be prosecuted. Chris Mays says, I'm not prosecuting. And I'm gonna call on the State House to do the right thing and take that law off the books. But the problem in the Arizona State House is it's controlled, even with a narrow majority, by Republicans, by MAGA. And now you got Donald Trump bringing back politics at the intersection of law. He's out there, flip-flopping and waffling about, national ban, but I really would like 15 weeks. But state should decide. Well, a state just decided. Arizona on the heels of Florida. This is what happens when Donald Trump, who takes credit, give credit where credit is due, he overturned Roe versus Wade by appointing getting the ability to appoint his 3 justices, including Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. And they got the numbers, and they ripped away, for the first time in the history of our constitutional republic, a right that had been given to a group was taken away in the Dobbs decision 2 years ago in March. And this is the real world impact of that, state by state. 21 states now ban abortion, most of them outright or at the 6-week level. And the other 29 states don't. And so now you have a civil war again, right? You have culture war and moral war going on, and women are not treated equally across our 50 states because in 21 states, they have no right to choose, and they are second-class citizens. So, Karen, why don't you pick up Arizona, Florida, and from your perspective?
It was just so depressing to read this decision. It was the fact that we're going back to 1864, truly, and I just can't. I can't even fathom this decision, and then the things that they said in there, and the way they talked about it, and it's so upsetting in so many ways. I actually skimmed through the decision and went to the dissent first because I was hoping I wanted to get the real perspective that I could then use as a lens to read this through, and that wasn't much better either because, frankly, what the dissent argues is no, let the newer law stand, which bans it at 15 weeks. Now, somehow the 15-week ban is the gold standard in Arizona, not the all-out ban, right? And so I'm thinking they're both bad. But this whole thing misses the point. There shouldn't be any law governing abortion, not, because this whole decision is about which law controls. Is this 1864 law that is still on the books, or is it the new law that went into effect as soon as Dobbs came out in 2002, giving it a 15-week ban? And so the dissent is like, no, let the 15-week one stand. And really the point is neither one should stand. This is just an outrageous situation that we're in. And so it's just frustrating, upsetting, and it needs to be fixed. It needs to change. And the other thing that really upset me too is the thing that the governor said about not the governor, the state attorney general said she's not going to prosecute it. It's courageous. Those are nice words, but they are meaningless. And I'll tell you why they're meaningless. Number one, no doctor is going to risk it. The law that went into effect actually punishes the doctors who perform the abortion or anybody who assists in an abortion. There's only an exception for saving a woman's life, not rape or incest or anything else like that. And no doctor is going to risk criminal prosecution. So it effectively bans all abortion, even though she says that. And the other thing too is, just like in New York, you have an attorney general, but you also have local prosecutors. Even though she says she's not going to prosecute it, there are local prosecutors. If you have extreme right-wing prosecutors, they could bring a case too. So unfortunately, until this is voted on and I guess put in the Constitution and repealed, you have to actually explicitly repeal one of these statutes if you want this to go into effect. But again, even if they repeal the 1864 law, you're still going to be left with this 15-week abortion ban. So something's got to change in a really big way. Otherwise, there will be no access to reproductive rights in Arizona, like in so many other states. And that's just the direction that we're heading in. That's, effectively the entire South. When you look at a map of the states that are now, you can't have any access to abortion, it's almost the entire South. And it's really it's really stunning just how it is shaken out. I think November is going to be more important than ever when people go out to vote, and they're going to have to really vote. This is going to be one where women have to come out in force and vote with their heels, because it's just outrageous what's happening and the rights that are being taken away from women, right? It's all about that. That's what's so shocking, is that we're actually going backwards. It's one thing for people to argue, oh, we're going too far, but to go backwards is outrageous. And this is just fundamentally something that I think that the only way out of this is through voting. So hopefully there's a silver lining to this, and hopefully decisions like this will actually cause more people and more women to come out and vote against the right-wing MAGA extremists. Even if the politician that's on the ballot, the option that's on the ballot, even if you don't love them, even if you think Joe Biden is too old, which I've heard some people say, even if you don't love all his policies, you have to, somebody explained it to me once that I thought was just such a great way of looking at it. When you're thinking of who to vote for, don't think of it more like a marriage. Think of it, like, oh, who's the one, that I want to fall in love with and I love everything about them. Like, don't think of it like a marriage. Think of it like public transportation. You're looking for the one that goes the closest to where you want to go at the closest time you want to go. It's not, and that's who you vote for. And there's no way that people in this country want this to be the way it is, that they want it to be where a doctor is talking to a woman and she has found out that, and this is something, personal, not my story, but someone close to me, who, was pregnant, and the child had hydrocephaly, and the child would have been, which is water on the brain. And there was no way that child was going to either was going to live, and certainly not live for a very long time. And that's what the diagnosis was. And it was the hardest decision in the world for this close person to me to make, to have an abortion. But it was a personal decision that she and her doctor made, and I have another person I know who was pregnant with a child, and they felt like it was a child, but they felt she was having severe health issues. Her life wasn't imminently in danger, but if they let it proceed, it would have been in danger. And the idea that you have to let someone's health deteriorate to the point where their life is actually at risk, as opposed to it's going to happen, and to have to carry who they felt was a child longer, knowing that it was a choice, a binary choice, right? She was going to die if she kept carrying it. It's just not right. These are painful, really difficult decisions that people make, even in the best of circumstances. And, every person I know who's had to make the decision, no one uses it as a form of birth control. No one does this because they want to. This is just a very difficult decision that they make with their healthcare provider. And unfortunately, states like Arizona have just wound back the clock to the point where now I think if this continues to be the case, places like Planned Parenthood in those places are going to have to change their business model, where when you walk into an abortion clinic, rather than getting an abortion, you get a ride to the airport and a plane ticket. And you're going to have to come in a hotel, and you're going to have to come to another state to get it. And that's got to be the new business model, because otherwise, how are people going to have access to this important medical need? So anyway, that's
the problem with the last one is you got states like Texas that are trying to criminalize people going across state, and then you're going to be back at the Supreme Court. We're going to have to decide whether the Interstate Commerce Clause protects them on this non-constitutional right.
Yeah, they're saying they're going to say states want to pass laws that say that a fetus conceived in their state is a citizen of that state, and to have an abortion anywhere, it's murder.
No worse, an embryo conceived in their state, not even a fetus.
Yeah,
they're doing it from heartbeat or below. Welcome back to Legal AF. That was our podcast. We do it every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel, and then on audio podcast platforms wherever you can get it. We don't blow smoke or sunshine. We take on civil rights, women's rights, constitutional rights, everything related to Donald Trump at the intersection of law and politics and voting rights and the rest. We do it right here with lawyers who know what they're talking about at the intersection of law and politics. If you know about the show already, we thank you for being part of our audience. And take the clip. Help be part of our marketing department. We need it. Send it off to friends and family and people in your life and say, hey, that show Legal AF I like a lot. Here's an example of it. Maybe they'll join our audience. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about or who I am, I'm Michael Popok. That was Legal AF. And we invite you to become part of our audience. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.